Am I the a-hole for letting people know through social media the reason I wasn't at my dad's wedding? I, female 18, was always pretty close to my dad. I'm closer to my mom, but I often visited my dad about 3 to 4 times a week. A few years ago, he started dating Anna. Anna and I always got along, and when my dad proposed, I was happy. Anna seemed like she would be a great stepmom. Well, a few weeks before the wedding, after I had bought everything, dress, shoes, etc., my dad and Anna said they needed to talk to me. Anna and my dad decided to have a child-free wedding, which I get especially for young kids. Well, turns out child-free means no one under 18. On the day of the wedding, I was still going to be 17, so therefore I am not allowed to be at the wedding, because Anna wants to stay true to the child-free rule, even for the daughter of the groom and her about-to-be stepdaughter. The funny thing is, my 18th birthday was just 2 days after the wedding. But still, I wasn't allowed to go. The wedding was just last weekend, the 12th, and my birthday was yesterday, the 14th. I haven't talked to Anna or my dad since they told me I couldn't attend a wedding since I wasn't an adult. My mom ended up taking me on a birthday vacation, and yesterday I posted birthday pictures on Facebook and said, "Finally an adult. I'm so glad my dad and Anna didn't allow me at their wedding since I was under 18. I feel more mature since yesterday." The family was freaking out, asking if that was true, and bashing my dad and Anna. I later got a bunch of texts from my dad and Anna, calling me immature and a selfish brat, and that's why I was too immature to be at the wedding. I was talking to some friends, and they said I was kinda an a-hole for doing that, and I should have just let it go. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. What kind of man doesn't have his own child at his wedding? Anyway, they made a choice. If they believe it was the right choice, they should have no issue about it being publicly known. Plus, people might well assume you weren't there because you disapproved of his new wife or chose a vacation instead. Ensuring people know why you weren't there saves your own reputation. My dad, but I was 4 at a time. Oh, I'm in the same boat, but I wasn't a child. I was 20 and didn't even know we got married, even though I was around both of them prior to the wedding. My gram told me and said she was disappointed that my brother, 19 at a time, and I didn't go to their courthouse wedding. My response was, "What wedding?" She was freaking mad at them for lying. The "no children was made for you." I'm sorry, but let that sink in. She made that rule to keep you out. You now know where you stand in their marriage. You don't. I'm so sorry. Not the a-hole. I personally think it was epic. Harsh, but epic. They deserve more than that. I would even update it with pictures of their texts. I can't help but wonder if she purposefully picked a date before Opie's birthday just so she couldn't go. If dad and stepmom wanted to make it child-free but make sure Opie was there, they could have made sure the date was after Opie's birthday. But to make it just 2 days before? Nah, they didn't want her there and was just trying to use that as an excuse. You nailed it. Cruel stepmom and deadbeat dad. Not the a-hole. Banning the 17 years and 363-day-old daughter of the groom from a wedding because it's child-free is a decision. A decision to exclude, to not invite, to make unwelcome. Not just in their wedding, but on their lives. Not only that, but they also waited to tell her until she had already invested time and money into getting ready for the wedding. If they told her from the beginning, it still would have been heartless. But at least she would have had time to process it and avoided wasting time, money, and excitement on these heartless idiots. Not the a-hole, obviously. They absolutely deserve the public shaming. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter-in-law she showed us who she really was on her wedding day? I'm the father of 4 children. In May, my son Neil got married to Debbie, and Debbie acted terribly the whole day. Straight up entitled and embarrassing. My oldest daughter was 3 months pregnant and hadn't told anyone because she has already had 1 miscarriage. She was barely showing, and Debbie picked a tight-fitting bridesmaid dress. My daughter was super sick from morning sickness, and Debbie told her she looked disgusting and to stop taking attention off of her. My son, who was best man to the groom, his brother, had his wife seated with some cousins across the room at the reception and not at the family table because she wasn't immediate family. We did not know this until the reception and tried to have her move back with our table. And Debbie said, "No, it's her day." It caused a fight, and the best man just left before the reception because his wife was snubbed. A few days after the wedding, my daughter miscarried again, while Debbie and Neil was on their honeymoon. Debbie felt like that was attention-seeking. Now, my wife, children, and spouses normally rent a house by the beach for Labor Day, and because of continued bad blood between Debbie and the rest of the family, they aren't invited. All 3 of my other children basically said if Debbie comes, they aren't going. So Debbie and Neil got the axe. When Neil asked about it, I told him Debbie showed us who she really was on her wedding day, and don't expect many invites from the rest of the family to do things. Neil was mad and saying it's not fair that she's feeling left out because she saw on social media where all the girls, including the snubbed sister-in-law, her mother, and my wife went to Barbie movie dressed in pink and she felt left out. Now he has to tell her she can't go to the annual beach vacation, and she's feeling hurt. I told him not one person in the family wants Debbie there, and I'm sorry she can't come. My son had me on speaker and Debbie started crying saying she can't believe how horrible we are, and she wasn't going to go anyways, and don't expect to see her at Thanksgiving or Christmas ever again. I lost my temper at Debbie, and I told her the rest of the family would be relieved to hear it. I'm sorry that she can't come. Sorry, not sorry. Debbie started crying saying she can't believe how horrible we are, and she wasn't going to go anyways, and don't expect to see her at Thanksgiving or Christmas ever again. Tell Debbie you feel like that's attention-seeking behavior, and to stop taking attention off the family. Also, tell her you understand her position, and will respect her decision not to come. Ever again. Not the a-hole. Honestly, I kind of feel like OP should have asked, "Is that a promise?" when she said that. Or, "Thank you for the gift." Don't threaten us with a good time. That line probably would have made Debbie lose her damn mind, lol. She's like the a-hole customer that says they'll never be back. Like, promise? Not the a-hole. It takes a truly awful person to tell a mother who has just had her second baby die to stop seeking attention. Especially when the mother hadn't told anyone she was pregnant because she was concerned about miscarriage. It was the bride herself insisting on a tight bridesmaid dress and harping on the bridesmaid's morning sickness that dragged the focus to the pregnancy. OP's daughter was trying to avoid attention. A few days after the wedding, my daughter miscarried again while Debbie and Neil was on their honeymoon. Debbie felt like that was attention-seeking. Everyday Reddit makes me ask, how do people like that exist? Not the a-hole. My sister has a personality disorder and she's exactly like this. When I was in high school, one of my lungs collapsed, and after I got out of the hospital, she insisted on using my wheelchair to get around because she needed it more. Hint, she didn't. Yikes. My older sister is similar. I had to have all 4 wisdom teeth removed at once because my teeth were already too tightly packed. I was laid out for 2 weeks solid trying not to slobber and cry. It hurt so much. My older sister was mad about how much attention I was getting. It's not like I had literal face bones removed. Carry on, I guess. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my niece help in my bakery anymore? I, 35 female, own a small bakery. I'm very happy with it and proud of my work. I have 2 employees who work part-time, and for the most part, it's just me. My sister-in-law approached me at the beginning of the summer and asked if I would let my niece, 11, help out in the bakery over the school break. She has been getting really into baking and loves watching content creators baking, and was apparently just dying to be able to job shadow and help out in a bakery. I was hesitant, but said yes. And I hated it. Every single minute that my niece spent in my bakery this summer was the only time I've ever had any regrets opening my business. Whatever the opposite of helpful was, that was what my niece was. My employees didn't enjoy her being there, and I didn't enjoy her being there at all. We were 3 very grumpy people all summer. I had hopes that she would get better, but she didn't. She started back to school this last week, and I have never felt so relieved. I thought many times about telling my sister-in-law that she couldn't come back during the summer, but since I had made a promise, I kept up with it. My sister-in-law stopped by the house yesterday to drop something off for my husband, and she told me my niece had absolutely loved her experience this summer and wanted to know if she could come back a couple Saturdays a month. I told her that unfortunately that wasn't going to work, and that going forward, I didn't think it was a good idea for my niece to help out. I told her it just wasn't productive for us. My sister-in-law was very unhappy. She told me that my niece had loved her summer at the bakery and was so looking forward to continuing. I told her that I was sorry, but I had a business to run and couldn't continue having her help out. This devolved into a shouting match that my husband eventually broke up. My sister-in-law and mother-in-law have been sending me nasty messages about breaking a girl's heart. My husband said my niece called him and was very upset, but he stands by me and understands that I can't let this bring down my workplace. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. This isn't a hobby and isn't some daycare. It's your business, your livelihood. I don't know what niece did to be so bothersome, but in the end, it's your choice, and you need to make a choice that works for your business. She probably was just in the way, as I can't imagine there would be much she could do in a fast-paced environment. If OP were having to stop to correct her or help her with something, it would slow her down, frustrating customers and everyone trying to work around her in the kitchen. An iffy age. Age 14, she can have a sort of summer job. Sure, the crappy work of sweeping and cleaning and toting, etc., but she can do something. But at 11, she's still a little kid in some ways. I was working for my father at age 12, but for like 2 hours a week. She wanted free childcare. The bakery was a convenient excuse. Not the a-hole. You run a legitimate business, not a daycare. You are there to make baked goods for customers, not babysit a child who probably shouldn't be there in the first place. I'll be honest, if I went to a food service place and saw a child running around behind a counter, I'd be taking my business elsewhere. I agree with you. We, my employees and I, really felt like it destroyed our image a bit. But we are in a smaller town, and there are several shops/restaurants around town where that's tolerated, so it's not 100% out of place where we are, but not something I personally like. To be blunt, OP, if I saw an 11-year-old at a bakery doing anything beyond sweeping the floor, I would not shop there. There's too much of a chance, in my opinion, that the child could be handling my food or messing up my order for me to risk it. I'm all for apprenticeships, but typically they start at 16/17, and apprentices go through standardized training and food safety certification, neither of which your niece would have. Too much of a safety/ick factor for me for hygiene alone, before we even get to the morality of child labor. Last story. Am I the a-hole for asking my brother's fiancé for money up front when I take her child places? My female 33, brother Ollie 36, his fiancée Lisa and their kids are currently staying with my family for a holiday. Ollie has a son Will 7 that he shares with his ex, while Lisa has a daughter Nia 8 from her previous relationship. I have a daughter Sienna 6. Over the past few weeks, I've taken the kids out numerous places. The way it has always worked when I've babysat Will is I take the kids out, and then when I bring Will back, I give Ollie or his ex an approximate cost of anything I bought while out and they pay me back. Obviously, this is not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes I will tell them not to worry about it if I've bought lunch or small souvenirs. But if Will comes back with something big, normally Ollie is insistent on paying me back for it. This works the same the other way around. I thought this would work the same with Lisa, but so far, it hasn't. Since this holiday, and actually over the 2 years I've known her, it either takes her a long time and several nagging reminders from my brother for her to pay me back, or she just doesn't. She will try to negotiate paying only a fraction of what is owed, saying she doesn't have the money and trying to make the cost my fault. Like saying I should have taken the kids to fast food place instead of a restaurant. This has begun to get very irritating, and I have found myself offering to take the kids out less because navigating the money with Lisa has become so awkward. My husband and I are meant to take the kids out tomorrow, so last night I took Lisa aside and said to avoid any awkwardness, she should give me or Nia the amount of money she is happy to spend on the day up front. That way, I know in advance what a comfortable budget is for her, and she doesn't have to worry about paying me back afterwards. Lisa got very offended and accused me of favoring the bio kids and singling out Nia. I said this had nothing to do with Nia, just Lisa herself, and that I was not happy to subsidize everything that Lisa doesn't feel like paying for after the fact. Lisa said this won't be fair because Nia won't be able to afford the souvenirs the other kids are getting. And I said, Lisa, you can't afford them now either. I'm the one paying for everything. Lisa got very upset and said she would just pull Nia from the day out. My husband says I did the right thing, but my brother says I should have just been a bit stricter with Lisa about having to cough up and not ask her for the money up front. I feel bad because now Nia is going to miss out on the outing, and Ollie and Lisa don't get to spend the day alone. But I don't think it's fair for me to have to ask Lisa 7 times for money I spent on her kid. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Ollie and Lisa keep their finances entirely separate, and they don't pay for each other's kids. I was trying to be respectful of that by going to Lisa directly because while Ollie does nudge Lisa to pay me back, I didn't think it was prudent to be asking him to pay me for Nia's expenses, knowing that that is not how they choose to do things. Not the a-hole. You're trying to work with her and she's just being unreasonable. Sounds like she wants to have her cake and eat it too. She wants to continue you paying and her bargaining the price down or not paying for it. Agreed, not the a-hole. And I just want to add that the way OP approached her and phrased the asking was about as graceful a way of handling it I've ever seen. OP took her aside, didn't demand a certain amount and let the budget be up to her. Girlfriend is not a good person. Exactly. I can understand how it could be a problem early on if OP and her family have a precedent of this kind of spending, and a general feel for how much they can reasonably spend on an outing that Lisa wasn't prepared for or couldn't match. But when OP tactfully asked for a budget ahead of time, the argument was that Nia wouldn't be able to afford what the other kids are getting, which indicates Lisa isn't viewing this as a budgeting issue, but rather wanting her kid to get as much as the other kids, but without having to pay for it. My brother says I should have just been a bit stricter with Lisa about having to cough up and not ask her for the money up front. This makes no sense, for one thing. Asking for the money up front is being strict, and your brother should not be leaving this up to you. And yes, Lisa has been taking advantage of your generosity of time and money. She knows you're a good parent and aunt, and hopes you'll be guilted into continuing to pay. It is horrible to have to repeatedly ask someone for money when they ought to automatically hand it over. As is so often the case, no good deed goes unpunished. Not the a-hole.